Hello, viewers. I am Professor Ushwinder Kaur Popli, Professor in the Department of Social Work, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Today's session is about history of social work in pre-independent India. We will discuss evolution and emergence of social work in India, focusing on state initiative across the ancient, colonial, and modern periods. By the end of the session, you will be able to trace the origin of social work in India, understand the needs that led to state welfare programs, recognize the influence of religion, literature, and institutions on welfare development, compare the nature of services across the three historical phases, and also learn about various government programs in current social work practice. Social work in India has deep historical roots, though it became a formal profession in the West. Indian traditions like Dharma and global ideologies such as humanism, secularism, and rationalism shaped its foundation. Throughout history, rulers and communities addressed human suffering through charity, reform, and mutual assistance. Over the time, social work evolved from relief and welfare to empowerment and right based approach. It evolved into important changes that took place with the government taking more steps to help people during ancient and medieval times, during British rule, and after India became independent. Initiatives by local rulers in ancient India. The roots of social welfare in ancient India are deep rooted and diverse, dating back to the pre Vedic, Vedic, and Gupta periods. Local rulers like kings, queens, and landlords played a vital role in fostering human development through structured governance and ethical values. First of all, pre Vedic period and Indus Valley civilization. The society had a great deal of planning during this period, introducing urbanization with planned structure and architecture. Indigenous self initiated systems of welfare and administration existed well before the arrival of Aryans. The discoveries of 1922-23 at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro in Sindh revealed advanced technology and town planning from the Indus Valley civilization. The city layout, including well designed homes and an efficient drainage system, reflects a highly organized, need based administration that ensured the well being of all social classes. Public spaces were thoughtfully planned, indicating a community oriented, people friendly society governed by set norms. Women were accorded dignity and respect, and there was a noticeable absence of gender bias, a challenge that persists today. Social values extended even to animals, as seen in depictions of Lord Shiva as Pashupati, Lord of Animals, highlighting a holistic approach to welfare and reverence for life. Secondly, talking about Vedic period and its relevance to social work, the Vedic period provides life's highest orders which are found in the Aryan scriptures entitled Veda, Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, Atharvaveda. The learning of Vedas was called Shruti, which was memorizing through listening. One of the finest skills of casework counseling is listening, which was practiced in the Pathshala, the school mode of education where the guru, the teacher, used to recite and the disciples practiced the listening and oratory skills and learned the lessons. Looking at the evolution of social welfare in ancient and medieval India, we see that during the Vedic period, the earliest form of state authority was rooted in the family and tribal systems. As described by Majumdar, families formed clans which were grouped into districts and tribes, the highest political units. Monarchy functioned with the help of officials, messengers, and spies to ensure the welfare of people and assess public sentiment. an early form of community need assessment, a principle still relevant in social work today. Key social institutions such as marriage, education, religion, and law took shape during this era and continue to form the core of social life. Public assemblies like sabhas and samitis facilitated people's participation in decision making. Charity, dan, was seen as a moral duty, with figures like Karna, Raja Harishchandra, and Raja Bhoj exemplifying values of generosity, truth, and justice. Respect for nature of an environment was integrated into religious beliefs. Women in the early Vedic era held equal status with several references to female sages such as Apala and Maitreyi. However, with the rise of large territorial states in the later Vedic period, gender inequality began to surface. Despite this, women served as educators and spiritual leaders, upholding peace and harmony. Life was guided by 40 sanskaras, marking stages of growth and moral development. The ashram system defined duties across life stages, and marriage customs were regulated. We find similar contemporary challenges before social work in addressing the situations of increasing crimes against women, such as gender based violence. Gautam Buddha, one of the greatest spiritual figures in ancient India, is also seen as an early social worker. Denouncing royal comforts, he lived among common people to understand human sufferings. Even deep inquiry, he discovered the Eightfold Path as a guide to overcome poverty, illiteracy, and ill health. His teaching focused on inner transformation and community well being, forming the foundation of Buddhism, now followed by millions globally. Under the Mauryan Empire, especially during Ashoka's reign, state led welfare became institutionalized through administrative departments and municipal boards. Ashoka's embrace of Buddhism marked a shift to humanistic governance where peace, livelihood rights, and dignity were emphasized. Values echoed today in civil society and NGOs. His initiatives promoted public services and upliftment of the masses, laying an early foundation for welfare state ideals. During the reign of Kanishka, India witnessed the emergence of Charaka, who gained a prominence for developing an indigenous system of medical treatment. Ancient texts mention Bhaisajyagraha, that is, medical stores, in towns, while Kautilya's Arthashastra recorded the role of veterinary surgeons responsible for the care of cattle, horses, and elephants. The post of Samastha Adhyaksha, that is, controller of establishment, oversaw public health. On the eastern coast, King Kavala of Kalinga was known for promoting peace and public welfare through gatherings and infrastructure development, including irrigation systems, gardens, buildings, and recreational spaces. Classical texts such as Manusmriti, Arthashastra, and Mahabharata outlined the foundation of scientific governance. The concept of the state was divinely ordained, where the king was seen as God's representative, was articulated in Manusmriti. Both Arthashastra and Mahabharata discussed electoral systems long before Western thinkers like Locke, Hobbes, and Rousseau introduced the social contract theory. According to Kautilya, the state's role extended far beyond law and order. It encompassed a wide range of responsibilities across the social, economic, cultural, moral, and spiritual life. The state was expected to maintain justice, regulate trade, industry, and family relations, and enforce religious and social norms. It also controlled the occupations and professions, from physician to entertainers, and even prostitutes, ensuring protection for the aged, orphans, and the helpless while responding to natural calamities. The family was recognized as the core unit of society and the state, while duties formally defined. The breadwinners was legally responsible for supporting parents, children, widows, and dependents. Renouncing family responsibilities for ascetic life without provisions was punishable by the state. The state acted as guardian and protector of minors and vulnerable individuals, offering education, training, and even employment, sometimes as informants or state agents. In essence, ancient India functioned as a welfare state where the king's duty was grounded in dharma, righteousness, and philosophy of karma, emphasized the moral consequences of action. As expressed in the phrase Praja Sukhe Sukham Rajana, the king's happiness lay in well being of his people. Welfare was central to governance. In ancient India, poor relief was a significant responsibility of the state. The government actively supported people during natural calamities like droughts and famines. Records of needy families were maintained, and state treasuries funded their relief. Kautilya described famine relief measures, while Yungchong noted the presence of rest houses that offered food, medicine, and shelters to travelers and the distressed. Efforts were made to employ vulnerable groups such as widows, disabled women, and dependents. These individuals were trained and sometimes even assigned roles like state informers or spies. Orphans received education and job placements, showing the state's inclusive welfare approach. The state also adopted people centric economic policies. Price regulation, anti corruption measures, and quality control of goods like food grains and oils were reinforced. Dishonest traders were fined, and public infrastructure projects like irrigation and housing were undertaken. The state provided loans, seeds, and foods, and even suspended taxes during hardships. Occupation like weaving were supported, especially for women, and labor codes addressed wage disputes and exploitation. Even slavery was regulated, with protections in place to preserve the dignity of labor. Slaves could not be used for demeaning tasks or sexual exploitation, a principle that echoes modern concerns about restoring dignity to marginalized laborers such as quenchers. Municipal administration was robust. Officials oversaw gardens, cremation grounds, public works, and maintained village records. The birth, death, land ownership, taxes, professions, and even personal conduct. Gopas, Nagarpals, and Sthaniks assured local governance, while corruption and embezzlement were dealt with severely. According to Apasthamba, the ancient ideal of a welfare state mandated that the king provide food, shelter, clothing, and healthcare to all, ensuring no one suffered from hunger or exposure. Royal guest houses remained open to the public, embodying state responsibility for universal welfare. With successive rule of Aryans, Arabs, Sultans, Mughals, and the British, India experienced diverse socio political influences. Arab invasions boosted trade, and Islam introduced charitable practices like almsgiving, that is zakat, and Ramzan fasting, reinforcing values of compassion, discipline, and contentment. The Indo Arabian cultural exchange played a key role in spreading Indian knowledge and scriptures globally. Ali the Fourth Caliph acknowledged India as the land where wisdom and writing originated. Indian texts like the Panchatantra, a collection of moral trails through animal stories, were translated into Arabic and eventually reached Europe. The theme of animal dignity also featured in words like Hitopadesha, reflecting early Indian concern for ethical treatment of all life. With the rise in the Delhi Sultanate, rulers like Iltutmish significantly promoted education and learning. He established madrasas and maktabas, schools attached to mosques in Delhi and Multan, making education more accessible. The Sultanate period is remembered for its efficient governance, marked by reforms in justice, coinage, markets, and administrative systems, including a well functioning intelligence network. Sher Shah Suri contributed greatly to public welfare, building inns, that is sarais, postal stations, dak chowkis, and a network of roads that enhanced communication and connectivity. These initiatives laid the groundwork for the Mughal Empire. During the Mughal era, Akbar emerged as a major social reformer. He banned child marriage, regulated alcohol consumption, enacted anti slavery laws, and invested in healthcare and education. He provided state funding to pathshalas and schools and lodged Deen-e-Ilahi, a syncretic faith symbolizing moral teaching from all religions. Prominent national heroes like Shivaji, Maharana Pratap, and Rani Lakshmi Bai upheld values of justice and protection of people. Meanwhile, the Bhakti movement spread across India, emphasizing human values, love, equality, and spiritual unity. Initiatives by colonial rulers, French, British, Portuguese rule, etc. Let us look at the colonial period. The colonial period in India marked a radical shift in governance and society. Unlike earlier invaders who assimilated into Indian culture, the British introduced a new system influenced by Western ideas of law, education, administration, and economics. Their presence was primarily motivated by trade, beginning with the Portuguese arrival in 1498, followed by Dutch, French, and British. The British East India Company eventually emerged dominant, controlling most of India by 19th century, and after the revolt of 1857, India became a crown colony under British rule. Every colonial governance focused on revenue collection and territorial expansion, but the repeated occurrences of famines forced the administration to take limited welfare initiatives. Between 1770 and 1860, 13 famines devastated India, leading to a creation of Famine Commission in 1880 and the development of famine codes in 1883. Relief measures included food distribution, public works, and conditional aid. However, the state avoided long term welfare due to financial constraints, often depending on private agencies for aid. In agriculture, despite India's heavy dependence on monsoons, the British made only marginal improvements in irrigation. The law passed in 1885 gave land rights to tenants after 12 years of possession. With pressure from Indian leaders, the British established a Department of Agriculture and institutions like the Imperial Institute of Agriculture. These efforts were complemented by a commercial focus on cash crops like jute, cotton, and tobacco. This commercialization helped integrate Indian agriculture into global trade but increased rural vulnerability. The British also developed extensive transport and communication networks, mainly to serve the colonial interests. The first railway was inaugurated in 1853, linking Bombay and Thane. By the end of 19th century, over 25,000 kilometers of railway lines had been laid, connecting major port cities to resource-rich neighborhoods. While primarily intended for resource extraction, this infrastructure also promoted economic integration and political unity across the subcontinent. Education was one of the most prominent fields where the colonial state took initiative. The Charter Act of 1813 obligated the British to fund education in India, starting with the grant of 1 lakh rupees. English was introduced as a medium of instruction, and by 1854, the state proposed a structured educational system from primary school to university. Despite these measures, education remained elitist due to the downward filtration theory, which prioritized high education over mass literacy. Health services under colonial rule evolved slowly. Initially limited to British personnel, hospitals were eventually opened for Indians in major cities. Christian missionaries supplemented state health efforts, especially in rural and underdeveloped areas. The establishment of the first medical college in 1835 in Calcutta and subsequent colleges in Bombay and Madras laid the foundation of professional medical education. The appointment of sanitation commissioners and the establishment of public health laboratories marked the beginning of organized public health services. The Board Committee, 1945, further advanced health policy and recommended inclusion of medical social work, leading to the appointment of India's first trained social worker in 1946. Industrialization during the colonial period led to the rise of plantation and machine industries, drawing large number of rural poor to urban centers. Living and working conditions were often exploitative. In response, early labor laws were enacted, beginning with the Apprentice Act 1850 and culminating in the Factories Act and various welfare legislations by the 1930s. These laws laid the foundation for economic justice and improved working conditions, leading to structured labor practices and legal rights for workers. Social welfare initiatives also emerged during this period. The colonial government enacted laws to address issues like beggary, juvenile delinquency, and crime, particularly in urban areas. Influenced by British experiences, social defense initiatives such as prison reforms, apprentices for orphans, and reformatory schools were introduced. Abolition of sati 1829, slavery 1843, female infanticide, and promotion of widow remarriage 1856 were some landmark legislation reforms aimed at social justice. Christian missionaries were pioneers in social work during the colonial era. Through education, orphanages, health services, and publications, they challenged regressive practices like casteism, ideal worship, and gender inequality. Their work inspired Indian reformers like Raja Rammohan, Jyotiba Phule, and Pandita Ramabai, who launched indigenous social movements and welfare institutions. Organizations such as Arya Samaj, Prarthana Samaj, and Ramakrishna Mission provided relief and support to the destitute, orphans, and widows. The colonial period also witnessed the formal institutionalization of professional social work. The establishment of Sir Dorabji Tata Graduate School of Social Work, now Tata Institute of Social Sciences, in 1936 marked a milestone in the history of social work education in India. This reflected a growing awareness of social issues and the need for trained professionals to address them, an effort that laid the groundwork for modern social work practice in independent India. To sum up, I may say that India's tradition of social welfare has deep historical roots beginning in the Vedic period. Ancient texts like Arthashastra emphasize the state's role in ensuring social justice, public health, education, and protection of vulnerable groups. Successive periods from the Indo Arab exchanges and Sultanate rule to Mughal reforms, advanced education, infrastructure, and secular welfare measures. The colonial era brought new systems in law, education, health, and labor welfare through primarily to serve imperial interests. These historical developments laid the groundwork for the emergence of professional social work in India, reflecting a long standing commitment to social justice and human well being. Thank you.